Hi, we're here at Essence of Life Radio, and today with us is Lynn McTaggart, author and researcher of The Effect of Consciousness on Reality. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, great to be with you.
Yes, so happy to have you here. Thank you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us some background.
Sure. I am the author of 7 internationally best-selling books, and my most well-known books are The Field, which is all about the fact that we're all part of a giant energy field, The Intention Experiment, The Effect of Consciousness on Matter, and A Worldwide Experiment I'll get to shortly, The Bond, How to Live in the New Science, and also The Power of 8, The Power of Intention in Small Groups. And I'm also architect of a thing called The Intention Experiment. Back in 2007, I was very interested in some of the new science, and I'd written this book, The Field, and talked to all these pioneers in consciousness research, but there was something nagging at me. There was the idea that consciousness is an actual something with the capacity to change physical matter. So I, being a skeptical journalist at heart, said to myself, well, how far can we take this? Are we talking about just moving a quantum particle, shifting a quantum particle, or are we talking about curing cancer? And what happens when lots of people are intending all at the same time? Does that magnify the effect? So I set up a thing called the Intention Experiment, where I work with scientists around the globe who set up well-controlled experiments. And when we do them, I invite my readers from around the world, participants from around the world, to take part by sending the same intention to the same target. And I've run 34 of them to date. Everything from trying to make seeds grow faster, to purifying water, to lowering violence in war-torn areas, to healing someone of a condition. And of those 34, 30 have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant effects.
You did an experiment like this in Jerusalem several years ago, and I actually found out about it last minute and participated by internet online, and it was so exciting and moving to see how people from all around the world and all around the Middle East took part. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was very fortunate to be able to use equipment that was set up in the south of England by a guy called Dr. Salah al-Rashed, who is essentially the Deepak Chopra of the Middle East. And he's got a big following. And so we partnered with Sippy Raz, the documentary maker in Israel, and we were able to use this equipment to put cameras in 9 different locations. So we had them in conference rooms in 8 different Arab cities. And the 9th one was in an auditorium full of Israeli Jews. And we came together to do an intention. And I also invited my readers from around the globe to take part in a simultaneous transmission on my YouTube channel. So we focused on an area of Jerusalem that was experiencing high violence. And it was interesting, and some of the data later demonstrates that there seems to have been a lowering. But that wasn't the interesting part of the story. As you know, because of this equipment, I could speak to the various people in the various locations, and they could speak back to me and be heard by all of the other locations. So when I asked them how it was for them, the various people, the Arabs started saying, you know, your God is my God, to the Israelis. The Israelis started saying, we love you, sister. And, you know, saying how, and everyone was so moved, everyone was crying. It was really extraordinary. And there was this incredible leaping of the heart across the fence. And I've seen this time and time again with polarized people, and also just ordinary people taking part in this kind of what is essentially like a mass prayer with a very directed focus. Their lives change too. And usually
That's what's interesting, is that it's not only in consciousness or spirituality, but you can actually prove that things are changing. Like you said, the violence was lowered. So that's an outcome that you can actually see.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's what we do every time with the intention experiment, whether it is, one of our experiments with trying to make seeds grow faster. I worked with the University of Arizona with their lab, and they set up 4 sets of seeds, took photos of all 4 of them, sent them to me. And whenever I was with each experiment, whenever I was speaking somewhere, I would have the audience take part in this experiment. So the first time we did it, we were in Sydney, Australia. I showed the audience the photos. They chose one to focus on. We focused on that, didn't tell the scientists until after we had told them it was finished. They planted the seeds, they measured them 5 days later, and then we unblinded the study and said, oh, it was seeds A or whatever it was. And in every single time we did this experiment, and there were 6 times in various places around the world, the seeds that sent intention grew significantly higher than controls. And again, the weird thing is, of course, we weren't sitting in the same room of these seeds. I was in Sydney, Australia, for instance, with that first one, and the seeds were sitting in a lab in Tucson, Arizona.
Wow.
8,000 miles away. And we weren't sending intention to the thing itself. We were sending intention to a photograph of the thing. So like a symbolic representation of it. So that says an extraordinary thing about the idea that we can create a psychic internet over all of that distance, that consciousness can traverse space.
So basically, people who take part understand the importance of their intention afterwards.
Oh, they do, because it impacts on them as well as the target. I mean, we've run 7 peace intention experiments to date. Every single one has had an effect. And for instance, several years ago, we chose to send intention to the most violent place in America, an area of St. Louis, Missouri, which had the, as I say, it had the record for numbers of violent deaths and injuries. So we focused on that area, and it was very good because we could get police statistics from several years before to afterwards. So we tracked it 6 months afterward, and we found that violence in St. Louis as a whole continued to go up. But in our little neighborhood where we focused, that violent area, that went down by 43%.
Oh, that's amazing. And does that stay? Do you check it again, or just check it one time afterwards?
Well, we check it periodically, and it seems to be, there seems to be some sort of amazing effect here. But what is also interesting, as I say, is the permanent effect on the participants. That's what I think is most extraordinary, because, we've had up to 25,000 people participating in any given experiment. And I survey them afterward to find out how they are and how this was for them. And I find over and over again, for instance, with the peace experiments, they will report things like this. I've made up with my estranged partner. My sister, who doesn't speak to me, hasn't spoken to me for 20 years, got in contact. I'm getting along better with my not so nice boss, and most importantly, about 40 to 50% say, I'm more in love with everyone I come into contact with. People are hugging strangers, basically. Yeah. So I think what's the really incredible aspect of this is not only the ability to demonstrate that we can affect the targets, but also by taking part in this kind of experience, you yourself change forever.
Well, that's the field, basically. We're all connected. So if we're going to have an effect on others, it affects ourselves as well, and our families and our surroundings. That's amazing. So now we're really coming together for International Day of Peace, and you have another experiment going. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. I can't reveal the target because what I find is this is a scientific experiment, and for it to work, we have to not have people thinking about or intending before we start. So I'll reveal it at the time, but we're going to be doing it tomorrow, the 21st of September. And the timing is, 10 a.m. West Coast time, US. That's 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UK time where I am. I'm in London. 7 p.m. Europe. And 8 p.m. Israeli time.
Right. Okay. And it's going to be in 3 languages, in English, in Hebrew, and in Arabic, which is
absolutely
amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all you need to do is to take part is to come onto a particular link and sign in. And the reason we ask people to sign in is because I need to know exactly how many people are participating. We have 3 scientists who are going to be taking some measurements, and I'll explain them on the experiment tomorrow exactly what those measurements do and what we're testing. We're basically testing a very subtle effect of consciousness to affect matter, but we're choosing we're calling it the Rebuild the Middle East Intention Experiment, and we're choosing a very needing target in the Middle East that really needs our help to send intention to. And there'll be a very specific intention. When I do the experiment, I'll be holding up slides. I'll be putting up PowerPoint slides so people can actually see the place and see the intention experiment, and also see the equipment we're going to be using to test it. So afterward, then, I will be surveying all the participants. They'll receive an email with from us with a survey to say, how long is for you?
How long does it take to actually get all the information after the intention?
Well, it's probably going to take a few weeks because I'll want to wait a week or 2 for people to experience any changes in their lives. So I'll send it then. We can get the data from the scientists fairly quickly, but it's going to take a little while to get the surveys back from the participants. But I will let everybody know afterward what happened.
Well, this is so exciting with all the peace agreements going on right now. I think it gives a little more of an intention to further that, to further those partnerships and peace around the Middle East. So absolutely.
And the fact that we have people from the Arab countries and these Israeli citizens as well taking part, and English-speaking people taking part, also indicates that, a willingness, a desire to come together. But as I say, what really is extraordinary to me is just people don't really believe the effect that this kind of group experience can have on them. I mean, I've had people take part in a peace experiment and they quit their job and join the Peace Corps.
Wow.
It really has a major effect on people and their lives. Some people review their lives afterward. And I think the real reason is because something about group intention enables people very quickly to enter what is essentially a mystical state, a state of oneness. They get to experience the field. We are the field, we're part of the field, but we live in separation. We live with a sense that we are separate. But in brainwave studies I've done with people involved in group experiments, the parts of the brain involved with separation are very diminished, are dialed way down during this experiment, during these kinds of group intentions, whether it's an experiment or a small group, power of 8. So what that means is we've looked at with these brainwave studies, they're analogous, almost identical to brainwave studies of Buddhist monks during ecstatic prayer or Sufi masters during chanting. So these are people in an ecstatic state of oneness, and that's what they report repeatedly.
I think also from my own experience, when you reach a state of oneness, it's not something that you ever forget. Once you feel oneness, even if you are momentarily in a separate state of mind, you know you're being separate. You know that everything's connected. You know everything is one. And so that once it changes, it really changes forever. And then it's just a matter of, growing that.
Absolutely. That is so true. And people do, it is a transformational experience. People do, they get into that state and they have, Abraham Maslow studied peak experiences, as he called these. And there are a number of characteristics, and one of them is a kind of blinding epiphany of meaning. You never, ever, you feel that you are changed and you are somehow, you understand life. And it all makes sense to you. And also, there is a rejuvenation of life. You want to change. You are forever changed by this experience going forward. And that seems to be the case with these group intention experiences in the main.
So since you can't tell us about this specific intention, what would you like to see in the future in general?
Well, what I've planned to do is a couple of big periodic intention experiments. We're going to be working with Uplift Connect and some other organizations to do quarterly experiments. And I think one of the biggest problems we face, aside from the global pandemic right now, but ongoing, is polarization. Fragmentation of our societies. We see it in America with the incredible polarization between Democrats and Republicans now. Well, one of our experiments will be trying to heal that. And since we've already seen that with two groups that have grown up to hate each other, Arabs and Israelis, the power of coming together and how that is transformational, we want to go forward and try to do that in more instances.
That's wonderful. I know you've also been doing intentions on the pandemic, because I've taken part in some of them. So how's that?
Absolutely. During the entire lockdown, and we'll be taking them up again too. During the entire lockdown and until recently, I was doing every Wednesday on my Facebook page at 5 p.m. UK, which is 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, 5 p.m. here in the UK, 7 p.m. Israeli time. I've been doing intentions for coronavirus and also in lowering the fear around the pandemic, because I think one of the biggest problems we now have is the fear. And that is what's paralyzing entire countries, is they are terrified beyond any kind of reason because they've been told to be frightened. And so I try to help people with that too. And not saying that the pandemic is not real and that it isn't, a very, very nasty virus. But I think people are so frightened that many, many people are frightened just to go outside. So there's the importance of helping people get over fear. And also, what? The other part of my weekly sessions on my Facebook page, and that's Lynn McTaggart 2011 if you want to take part. The other part of that also is saying to people, okay, now what? The life seems to have changed forever. Is this, what can we do now? And the argument I've really been talking about is actually this is not something to be feared, because people have been talking about for many years that there is an unprecedented change going on in our society and that many old systems are breaking down. And I maintain that this has to happen. This always happens. I was speaking the other day with Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he says in biology, this kind of disruption and breakdown always occurs when there is something evolving. And that is what's going on.
It's like the caterpillar and the butterfly. And I agree. And I think it's so important for people to understand that it's all for the best. All good things are going to come out of this. And
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, a lot of aspects of our society were not working. They were manifestly unfair. People were very isolated. Before the pandemic. And now what's been so interesting is a real reclaiming of important values that we recognize because of lockdown, how important community is, how important family is. It's far more important than getting more stuff, you know? So
how important the health is.
Yes, and health. These are the most important elements, of our lives now. And so we are reclaiming important values. We're also signaling and calling out things that we think are phony and wrong, and looking at areas of unfairness in our economy, all kinds of things, unfairness in our society, and looking at that with a much more critical eye. So it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride right now, but I'm really confident that this is the only way forward and a way to live a far more authentic life.
I totally agree with you. So before we conclude, tell people how they can connect, and when they do connect, what's expected of them, for people who have never taken part.
Okay, so to connect, you need to sign up. And for English, you sign up to https://, and that's www.the1, and that's a numeral one field.com /what-s-next 159-981-724-8141. I'll repeat that. www.the1, that's a numeral, the1field.com /what-s-next 159-998-172-48141.
And anybody who wants Hebrew or Arabic, if they go into the English, will it show them where they can connect in Hebrew and in Arabic?
I think if they go on to the website, theonefield.com.
Okay, perfect.
They will be able to find all of this. So if you haven't picked up all of those numbers, I think theonefield.com will give you all that information.
Great, and we also will have it on Essence of Life as well.
Yeah,
so for
and you
people
can see
who
it
don't
on my
know,
Facebook page too.
So for people who don't know, what does it mean to hold an intention? Could you give a little bit of a summary so that they know what they're getting into, or if they want?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been studying intention for many, many years, and I've worked with a number of intention masters and tried to distill all of that, plus the science around intention, into simple programs. Now, intention is a very, very focused thought. It's not like meditation. Meditation is a state of quiescence. This is a state of very active focus. And one of the most important things about intention, in my experiences, both with intention experiments, but also running thousands of small groups in my workshops and courses, etc., I find the most important thing is to be very specific. So we're going to be using very specific language. The intention doesn't have to be held for hours. The only thing we do every single time with both our intention experiments and my Power of 8 groups of small group intention, is to hold it for 10 minutes. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hold it for 10 minutes while a little bit of music in the background plays, and you'll just feel it. What has been recorded for me over and over again with thousands of responses is feelings of extraordinary electricity. People cry uncontrollably. They feel goosebumps up and down their legs. One person said they felt like they were in a tractor beam in Star Trek. Even though we're all separated, only participating via our computers, there is this extraordinary psychic internet that gets created and that I hope you'll experience too.
So I really hope that everybody joins this experiment, International Day of Peace. It's so important. And thank you so much, Lynn McTaggart. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.